I don't use a lot of Zoom. I use Google Meet mainly, so I forgot to take the background off. And well, I mean, who doesn't like a little speed racer? For those of you who don't know speed racer, maybe look it up, have some fun there. But anyway, a little bit of background to just kind of build off Tom. I do run kind of the people team, which is right now a team of one at a company called Arrive here in Chicago. We are the parent company or overarching brand for ParkWiz, which is our consumer brand, which most people actually know. But I've been here for 5 years. I've been in the recruiting space for the better part of 2 decades and almost exclusively within technology hiring. Started out on the external side, where I was kind of a external headhunter working with a number of different companies, and then moved internal back in 2010, and have led some hiring efforts since then for a singular organization. And that's kind of me real quick. So I do have a passion for hiring, right? It's a good thing, seeing as I've been doing it for a decade and a half plus. But you know, I think these sessions are really kind of cool in that it's kind of a more holistic approach to trying to help ease the transition and set you up for success as you go through the cohort and look to transition into an engineering role in one way or another. So I'm really glad to be here. It's been a good go since I have been doing this, and hopefully you'll find some value. There are a number of sessions that we'll have. This first one is really aimed at just trying to get you thinking about, well, what happens at the end of this, right? And towards the end with building out resumes, talking through your experience, interview prep, you know, networking and the like. And that's where we start today, is a little bit more on the networking side. And I am going to find, I pulled this up already. I'm going to share my screen and ask you all if you can see it. Can everybody see this? Building a foundation career planning for Platoon. Does that jive? Everybody happy with that?
Yep.
All right, cool. So I can actually expand the presentation. All right, so let's start here. Introductions, we kind of already did this a little bit. My colleague, Amanda, she and I used to do this. She actually used to lead this effort for Platoon. She has stepped away for a little bit, but you know, this is who we are, right? It'll be me at this point. But what we're covering today is really more about telling your story and being prepared ultimately to get into the resume building. So with that said, we'll move on to the next one. Does everybody have GitHub already? Has everybody established their accounts either prior or what have you? This is important, right? As you well know, not just for storing your code and kind of tinkering and exploring, but also to demonstrate, right, how important it is and how interested you are in actually saying what you say you're doing here, right? I will say, as a hiring manager or as a recruiter, I always look at people's GitHubs, right? GitHub accounts. Certainly look for it on the resume to make sure it's included, and then I look to see what they've done. Where are they playing around? How many commits are they making? How active are they? This is something that I'm very keen to see. And again, certainly in more junior folks, I want to understand how much they, how big of a commitment they are actually making to this new this new career choice. Right? There is a video here. This is where I've had trouble in the past. I want to make sure you can hear this, and it might be through. Do you guys hear that or no?
No.
Yeah, that's because it's. I don't understand why I can't do that with my headset in. But once I don't get it. but we'll do it this way. It'll work.
Hey folks, what's up? Stan Bader here, and after a previous video, I got some questions.
Can everybody hear that?
Yep.
Now I'll get to the actual part.
Hey folks, what's up? Stan Bader here, and after a previous video, I got some questions. People are going to be able to browse your code and all that. All right, let's take a look at my GitHub profile as an example. So I set that up several years ago and just kind of, started releasing all of my open source stuff on my GitHub. And I've got a couple of projects here. So they recently rolled out a change where they let you sort the projects that are displayed here. And you can take advantage of that and kind of, put your best work out there so people can see what you're all about. And I think this is really a key part of having a good online portfolio or good online presence as a developer. I think you should start with your blog or write about programming. And then very soon after, or almost immediately, you want to add something like a GitHub profile or a GitLab profile or Bitbucket profile where you just share some of your code so people can see what your skill levels are, and they can just get a feel for you. And I think it really helps having some open source projects here. And the things you start with, they don't have to be super impressive, right? Like, for example, I did this little thing where I was not happy that there weren't any good README templates for open source projects out there. So I started this README template repository, and it got a couple of likes, and that stuff is very easy to set up, but it actually provides some value to people, and people are going to see that basically you want to make the world a better place, right? Because you're putting this work in and you're giving it away for free. And so stuff like that, it really shows that, you care about software, you care about programming, that you want to give back to the community. And I really care about those things. And so this is a great way to do that. And then at the same time, get some credit for it. So when you're applying for a job or someone's going to seek out your GitHub portfolio or your GitLab or Bitbucket portfolio, they're just going to see that you're active and, you're passionate about this stuff. And now with something like Schedule, which has, a couple of thousand likes on GitHub now, or stars or whatever, with this stuff, it's all about the humble beginnings, right? I wrote this over a weekend, threw it out there. People on Reddit hated it. And now it's it's a really popular Python library on GitHub. So if you have something like that has put me in touch with a lot of people and opened a lot of opportunities for me. So this is great, but you just got to try a bunch of things, and because you never really know what's going to get traction and what people are going to like. But to kind of put a conclusion on that, yes, absolutely. I think if you're serious about building an online presence as a developer, I would definitely start with a personal website, add GitHub as soon as possible. And then you definitely want a LinkedIn profile as well, I think. And you probably want to think about adding a Twitter account as well. And then I think you've got your bases pretty much covered. But at least that's what worked for me. And that's I'm kind of biased towards that. But I've seen that work really well in other people. So this is kind of the strategy that I would take. All right. So if you enjoy.
So all things aside there in regards to is, oh, shit. Can you guys hear me?
We can't hear you.
Yeah, figures. What about now? Are we good? Yeah, it's the damn headset. Damn headset technology. Anyway, so obviously it's a little bit repetitive based upon what I put out there, but I think he draws a couple of really good points, and the biggest one being it does show interest and commitment, right, into what it is that you're trying to do as an engineer. Tinker, play around, it doesn't have to be crazy, but the presence is going to be needed, right? Hiring managers, recruiters, if they're worth their salt, are going to be interested in looking just to see what you've done, right, beyond just a resume or discussions around projects. So it's a good place to explore. Definitely do it. Build it out. Cool. All right. So next, telling a story, right? Telling a story is something that you're going to be doing always, right? Not just with GitHub, but also on your resume, also through interviewing, also as you build projects, right? You're going to have to figure out all the situational specifics and obviously the end goal and kind of go through the results, right? So it's all the same stuff. So this stuff is, to think about it of actually telling a story is really important. So GitHub is one tool that helps you do that, but there are other things as well, right? So this is one format that I feel helps, right? We've all talked about or thought about SMART goals, right? And this is very similar. So there's the situational specifics and the meaning behind it, right? Like what were the actual details, right, of the initial problem set, right? What was the action that was taken, and what was the ROI? What was the results? How did the actions you take, what actually did it do, right? And then how did it tie in, right? How did it tie into the things that you are that reinforce your effort, your brand, if you will. Because values are going to come into play, right? As we get towards the end of the cohort, we'll talk about interview preparation and kind of personal brand and values and ways to position yourself there. It's the same type of thing. What are your strengths, right? And how does that story that you're looking to tell, how does it play into those specific strengths? So it's a good format to follow, and it's a good format to think about as you're putting yourself out there in any respect, be it GitHub or LinkedIn, and we'll talk about that in just a minute too. So why do the stories matter? As I kind of already discussed, they kind of help guide you, right, through interview questions and as well through just story development. But you're going to get these types of situational questions. Describe a situation when you met a major obstacle, and how did you deal with it, right? How did you overcome? How did you actually get to an end result? And then how did you look back on it? That's one thing that's missing here. But looking back, like how would you have done things differently? It's always good to think through those things as well. Tell me about a time when you had a disagreement with another engineer or colleague. It doesn't have to be an engineer, right? If you haven't worked in an actual software development role before, but how do you handle discord? How do you handle difficult situations? These are all things. And stories, right? Tackling them through a format where you have points that you cover off on, make sure that it's a complete picture, and helps guide you through that answer. Does that jive? Does that make sense? All right. So this, and feel free to stop me, by the way. You don't have to raise your hand, but just jump in and talk. This does not have to be just talking at the screen. But if you want it to be, that's fine too. So networking is obviously very important. Anytime that you're going to be looking to make a change or look for a new opportunity. It's a little different these days, right? There's a quarantine that has kind of lifted a little bit, but nonetheless, there's still a pandemic. Things are not the way they used to be. But that makes your online persona all the more important, right? Because people are really going to be digging into that. So one of the places that you could use as a kind of online starting point is About Me. It's probably not as used as it once was, but it is kind of a great place right now. There's like link trees, right, that have all your links for all your different profiles, or places that people can see your contributions. But a good jump off page is good, right? And the things that you want to have on that, would be your GitHub. If you have a personal website, your LinkedIn. Anything that could be of value in regards to somebody that's looking to possibly vet you or look at you for a specific opportunity. So LinkedIn, that's probably the biggest one, right? Outside of GitHub, LinkedIn is the place to go these days in regards to professional networking, and a lot of hires actually come through LinkedIn as well. A lot of job seekers and a lot of job applications, and many modern ATSs, that's applicant tracking systems, right? That you would click through a job, right? Allow you to actually click through and apply with your LinkedIn profile. So it's very important to be able to have the right persona developed on that site. Does everybody have a LinkedIn profile? Does everybody have a LinkedIn profile that is updated? Yeah, that's harder, right? Like how do how do you appropriately position yourself, right, as a student, right, somebody that's going through and looking to make a career change? Like, how do you do that? These are good questions, right? And if anybody needs any help, by the way, I am on Slack, and I also would encourage you to hit me up on LinkedIn. Hopefully, everybody feels comfortable to do that as well, because expanding your network is definitely a good thing. But as you are aspiring engineers or looking to get into a different side of engineering, depending upon your background, you want to put your best foot forward. And these are some things that might seem a little silly, but I think are appropriate to call out, because you'd be surprised. Write a good headline, right? There's a couple of different things that you can do in regards to LinkedIn, right? There's your actual job. There's an actual headline that when your name comes up in a search, right? That you could say, like, aspiring engineer, or looking to change the world, or whatever the heck it is, right? You can attach that to your name, in addition to your job profile or experience profile, excuse me. Use a good photo. This is a pretty big one, actually. You do want to have a photo, and you do want to have a professional networking appropriate photo. Right? It's not Facebook. It is not Twitter. Those are different platforms, and they have different purposes. Make sure that you're using one that is appropriate for LinkedIn. Use relevant keywords. So as you're building out your profile and you're talking through your summary and you're talking through everything, and as well in your actual profile and listing out your experience, you do want to kind of layer in some keywords. You don't want it to be buzzwordy, right? But you also want to put in the things that are important, right? Like, you are open to career opportunities. You are looking to gain entry into whatever the tech skill set is that you are interested in. But make sure that you layer those words in, because recruiters are searching off of those. Hiring managers are searching off of those. So make sure that those things are definitely layered in there. There is some debate about that fourth bullet, which is, or not the fourth, fill out your entire profile, like, you definitely want to do that. There are certain things that you can maybe have a little bit more brevity on, right? Like, I've been working for a few years, right? So, my earlier experiences, I don't have 5 bullet points or a huge summary of what it was that I did. It's just a single sentence. That's sufficient, right? But it is good to kind of list out your experiences, just to make sure people kind of know who exactly you are. I'll get at you later, Slack. Now, the fifth one, excuse me, the do not copy your resume, make it personal. That's my take, right? I do think LinkedIn gives people opportunity for a little bit more personalization, a little bit, not just cut and dry numbers and results, but a little bit of flavor and personality of kind of who you are. I think there are a number of reasons for that. Number one, there is the headline, right? But there's also a summary. Resumes don't often carry summaries anymore. I don't think they necessarily need to, but I think LinkedIn's a great place for that, right? To kind of talk through, and certainly as people that are looking to transition, it's a great place to kind of call that out, right? Like, why? Like, put it out there. Like, why are you transitioning? Why are you going to school? Why did you do this? That's the absolute perfect place for it. And then as well, I don't think the bullets or summaries or summations underneath one of your job experiences need to be exactly word for word from your resume. You can cover off on some same stuff for sure, right? But at the same point, it can, again, carry a little bit more personality, a little bit less hard data, unless you're looking to actually use it to apply, right? Which I for the purposes of today, you're not, right? We're eventually going to be building your resumes in Credle, I believe, still doing that. So you don't need to be as concerned about that. Definitely include your contact information, right? You don't want to necessarily put it front and center, because you probably will get spam, because people look for that. But at the same point in time, list that you're open to career opportunities. Towards the bottom, include your email address, right? You don't have to put your phone number, but make it easy, right? Not all recruiters have, and or hiring managers have premium accounts on LinkedIn, right? And they can't just send LinkedIn messages without sending a connection request. make it easy for people to reach you. If you are in fact definitely looking for a new role, which I would imagine you all are at some point, make it easy for somebody to reach out to you and talk to you about it, right? Don't create a hurdle where it doesn't belong. All that makes sense? Questions about LinkedIn?
Question.
Yep.
What's your take on adding that green open to work circle? I've heard, good and bad things about having that available or not.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Okay.
Again, it depends. For the purposes of everybody here, I think it's beneficial because you are open to work, right? You definitely are. I think if you are gainfully employed full time and you don't want your employer to know that you are open to work, then maybe not the best time to have that button on, right? But other than that, I don't see any harm in turning that on. That's my take, right? Maybe others have different position, but I don't see any harm in it at all.
Do you recommend putting like student at Code Platoon or something as like our current position?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And you definitely want to have Code Platoon on there, right? I think two ways. I think both under education, because it is, right? You are in fact getting an education through the cohort, and then also you can list it as your current experience, right? And you could say student, aspiring engineer, whatever the heck it is that you want to do, right? Or budding engineer versus aspiring, because you are all engineers to some extent, right? Yeah, I think that there's nothing wrong with saying that you're a student. There's nothing wrong with saying that you're a student. And this is one of those things, like if you have questions about it, feel free to ask me. I know that's what you're doing right now, but if you have specific questions, like if individuals want to reach out to me, please do. But I think that like if you wanted to kind of get just a sign off, or hey, what are your thoughts on how I'm positioning this, I'm more than keen to do that on a one-off basis versus everybody. But I do feel that you should put you're currently a student, and that you are looking to make an impact as an engineer, right? Absolutely. Did I ramble too much, or did that make sense? Okay. So around the summaries, there are a couple of examples here that of actual past Code Platoon folks that I think are really worthwhile and well done. So Darnell here, this is how he kind of positioned himself initially. I'm a 6-year Air Force veteran turned software engineer. During my time in the Air Force, I was an aerospace propulsion technician, essentially a jet mechanic. But I began coding during my free time and absolutely fell in love with it. When it came time for me to re-enlist, I decided to get out of the Air Force and pursue a career in software development. I spend pretty much every day learning as much as I can about coding and honing my skills, and I'm excited to see how far I push my skills, how much I can learn, and what cool stuff I can build. Now that's cool, right? Like that's a great summary because it paints a picture, it paints a story. It doesn't discount what he's done before because it's really important, but it shows the journey on like, hey, what clicked on why he wanted to be an engineer and what drives interest in being an engineer, right? Like he wants to continue pushing skills. He wants to continue to learn. He wants to build cool stuff. That is worthwhile. That is a cool story to put out there. Next, we've got Sean. I'm a newly initiated software developer who works diligently and efficiently to find creative solutions to difficult problems. My enduring curiosity propels me to tinker with new technology and cache them into my skill set. Working with others, sharing our victories and occasional setbacks are some of my favorite parts of coding. I have people skills, enjoy algorithms, and have experience with numerous languages and tools. It's another great story, right? A nice little summary of kind of who he is and why he's interested, right? Like what some favorite things are about the idea of coding and software engineering. These are good profiles, and those are great summaries, and we'll build towards having something like that to kind of showcase who we are, right? because the summary is the first thing people see on your LinkedIn profile. You want to make sure that you're putting the appropriate foot forward and kind of building the appropriate brand. Like Sean's got a lot of buzzwords in there to some extent, right? Like creative solutions, new technologies, curiosity. Those are good things, though. These are attributes that employers are looking for. Like they want people that are curious and they're going to tinker, that are passionate about finding solutions, right? And working together, right? These are all good things. These are good examples of kind of that LinkedIn profile. So the other profiles, right? So we talked about GitHub, we talked about LinkedIn, and I think those are probably the most relevant platforms that carry the most weight. But there are other things too that can be good, right? Twitter, for example. I've had I've actually hired a few people through Twitter, right? That I've followed for years and introduced to people through Twitter, right? But the other thing that's really good about it is you don't actually have to participate, right? Like I don't know, like there are lots of different platforms these days, right? And trying to manage all of them, it's a lot, right? And I get it, and you're busy. Like it's not like you have a ton of free time right now, and I fully understand that. But I think Twitter is a good place to just kind of get a sense of what people are talking about, right? That's kind of what it is. It's in the moment, right? And there are a lot of technologists, there are a lot of tech leaders, there are a lot of just leaders that are worth following to say, what are they talking about? What is interesting to them, right? And use that as kind of a tipping point towards learning something new, right? I think this is a list of people that are worth following in my mind to kind of give again a little flavor of where things are trending, right? So good accounts to follow. You do not have to engage. That seriously is the great thing about Twitter. You can follow 1 million people if you want. You can create lists, right, on kind of who people are or what companies are what, and just create those verticals and just look into that and see, hey, what happened what tweets have come out over the last hour, and just get a quick snapshot. And I think it's entertaining, as well as it could very well be informative. But you don't ever actually have to tweet anything, which is nice. But you can, the beauty of the hashtags as well, right? They're not quite as prevalent as they once were on Twitter, but they still are. So, you can search for keywords and you can search for specific people. But there are a lot of great tech CEOs that I think are fun to follow because they have very interested and pointed opinions about the direction of their specific verticals and why. And it's interesting to see the retweets that they make, right? What articles do they find fascinating, right? What trends are interesting to them? These are very good things for you to kind of get a handle on too. And I think Twitter's really good at that. The other thing is Mary Meeker's Internet Trends Report. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with Mary Meeker, but she's a very well-known venture capital investor, very successful in every year for past couple of decades. She's put out kind of an internet trends report on kind of what they have been seeing and what kind of where things are moving, and she's pretty much almost always spot on, right? So it is very interesting to read when it comes out. It is a huge PowerPoint deck, right? That is pages and pages and pages, but again, very much worth a read. And it could be used as a starting point, right, to conversation as you are networking. That's another thing here around Twitter and LinkedIn and these other places. It gives you fodder for conversation, right? And conversation has to be had at some point. So another good thing. So these things, while networking is a little different these days because physical networking has kind of gone by the wayside. But that said, meetups still happen, right? They're just happening virtually. Webinars are still happening. Go to them, right? Again, I understand that you're very, very busy right now. So it's not like you have a ton of free time to knock these things out, but please be cognizant that they are there. there are large communities, not just within Chicago, because now it doesn't have to just be Chicago, but there could be broader communities within regions or even on a national level, right? To get an understanding of what people are doing, what they're talking about, and just see panels. And now there's more than ever because of because of the pandemic, and it's a great opportunity to see some great panels. Now, the happy hours, the tech actual networking events, those are a little bit more difficult, right? But they still exist, and there are breakout rooms, and there are opportunities to do those. And if you can, I'd say try to do it again within time. There are other communities locally here in Chicago as well as elsewhere. So AngelList is a great place, AngelList and Product Hunt, right, to kind of understand some usually smaller organizations or startups and kind of what they're doing. It's a good place to kind of build a little bit of profile. Built in Chicago, there are many built-in sites kind of all across the United States, but they do focus on tech hubs within metropolitan areas. And then Chicago Inno. Chicago Inno, there's actually an American Inno, but many, just like Built in Chicago or Built in, there are many Innos on metropolitan areas. So I don't know if everybody's in Chicago, probably not, right? So you don't have to just look at Chicago. Now, these are other things that we kind of need to talk about. Because you will network and you will have conversations, even if it's not going to be in person. Eventually, it is going to be in person, right? It's going to happen. So we need to be prepared for it. Nobody needs to raise their hand here, but like, how many people really like networking? Right? like how many people like really enjoy going into a room with maybe one person or two people that they know, and there's 100 other people, and trying to strike up conversation? Like, most people shy away from those types of things, and that's fair. Like, networking isn't a lot of fun. The most gregarious person in the world is, often will have some trepidation walking into that situation. So that is fair, and recognize that. But what you need to do is you need to manage your expectations around networking. If you think that you're going to go in there and you're going to, have 20 great conversations, well, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for disappointment. The goal should be, to have one, maybe two conversations, good conversations. Oftentimes the way that happens is as the fly on the wall initially, and listening to another conversation, right? And then kind of butting in somehow. Like, that's how it usually works, right? And that's your goal. Your goal is to have one, maybe two conversations. Now, how do you make sure you have one or two conversations? It takes a little time, right, to figure things out. It also takes a little bit of research. Anything that you're going to do is going to take some research and kind of some preparation, right? Some of this is not quite as relevant as it once was, but in an online world, you do know typically who's going to be there, right? You know the panelists. You oftentimes, certainly within meetups, you can actually see who's going to be attending, like who said that they were actually going to be attending to this event. Look at the roster. See if there's anybody that you know. See if there's anybody that you might be interested in. Like, oh shoot, that's, I just saw that's the VP of engineering at XYZ. Cool. I was actually targeting that company, right? So try to find out who might be going, and try to prepare a few questions or talking points if you run into them. Doesn't always happen, but try it. Limit your time. Don't push yourself too hard. It's totally true. Again, don't think that you have to be there when the doors open. When doors will actually open and people will go inside and network. Don't think that you actually have to be there when the doors open and then leave when the doors close or about to close. Be realistic. Don't push yourself too hard. But just have, again, realistic expectations. The icebreakers thing is actually pretty relevant too. Like, you don't need to come in hard and fast, right? With, ooh, I saw that article that you read, or what do you think about? What do you think about this specific model, or whatever the hell it is, right? Like, you can break in with something else. Oftentimes, again, past hors d'oeuvres not happening anytime soon. But like, what do you think about this food? Like, whatever it is, it can be a soft opening to create some sort of rapport to where you can have a more meaningful conversation. You don't have to come in with that hard question right away. ask someone in the know for an introduction, always, right? If you see somebody online, if you see a company that you're interested in, whatever the heck it is, this is where LinkedIn is certainly very helpful. Like, do I know anybody that's connected to that company? Do I know anybody that's connected to that person, right? Is there a way that I can leverage that person into getting an introduction, either in person or online? Like, these are good ways to get people that are typically going to be interested in helping you, right? So leverage your networks, leverage the people you know as much as you possibly can. Now, in regards to in-person networking, this is a really good tip, right? When you meet somebody, say their name back to them. Right? Try to say it a couple of times in the first few sentences, or if somebody else comes into the conversation, make the introduction there. And then when you're saying goodbye or when the conversation's over, make sure you say thank you or whatever the heck you need to say, depending upon the conversation, and say their name again. That's going to make it stick, right? And you'll be able to remember. You don't want to have to walk away and immediately try to write down the name, right? Or take your phone out and text yourself to make sure you don't forget who the hell it was you just talked to. And as well, business cards aren't as big as they once were, but hey, if you can get a card of the person that you talked to, that's great, because that's going to give you an opportunity to follow up with them at a different time. Be a listener. That's huge, right? Don't try to dominate the conversation, and try to take a genuine interest in the person that you're speaking with, right? If trying to listen to what they have to say, that makes people feel good, right? If you're dominating the conversation or seem distracted and only kind of half listening, like that doesn't make you feel warm and fuzzy. It's definitely not going to create a connection with that person. So just be cognizant of those things as well. Sharing personal stories kind of gets back to one of the earlier points as far as like icebreakers. It is good to make conversations personal if at all possible, because it does make you memorable, right? It's kind of like the LinkedIn introductions that we looked at just a little while ago. They were personal, right? There was a little bit more memorable. If it just it says something that I used to be in the Army, and now I want to be an engineer. Well, that's good. Maybe I'll remember that, right? But if there's a story that's associated with that, that's gonna leave a much bigger mark, and it'll be easier to remember. Oh yeah, that person had a great story about kind of who they are. I remember their name. I remember that conversation. So it's just a good thing. Get business cards. Make your own. Even if you do not have current employment, whatever it is, you still do have something that you can share. You have your name, you have your contact information, right? You have your school, you have whatever your LinkedIn. You can put all that stuff on a business card, right? Or a card to share. You don't have to call it a business card, right? But having that at the ready to share with somebody, again, it is going to make it easier. You want to remove obstacles for communication and connection, and that's another way to do it. The follow-up email, this is huge, and we'll talk about this towards the end of the cohort as we're talking about interviewing as well. I think a follow-up email is really nice, and it definitely does help create the connection with somebody. So if you do have a meaningful conversation, or even not a meaningful conversation, have a half-hearted conversation with somebody that you want to create a relationship with or a connection with for a more meaningful conversation, the follow-up email is a great way to do it, right? Number one, it shows that you appreciated the conversation. And then number two, it shows an actual interest, which is always good. People like to be interested in, have people interested in them on the whole, right? So those are good things to do. It is good, if at all possible, to mention something specific from the conversation. We had a laugh about this, or you talked about this specific approach to a problem, or whatever the heck it is. It shows kindness, it shows interest, and it shows that you had a connection and you're looking to continue that connection. So definitely follow up with an email, and then be kind, right? Don't be a jerk, right? That's kind of a given. People do remember jerks, and it's usually not in a kind way. So try to be nice at all times. Now I think that's it. That's all that I had prepared to kind of talk through today. But I'm here to answer any questions. I'm here to answer any questions. Anything that anybody wants to ask me at this point, either around what we kind of went over today, around ways to prepare for additional parts of the cohort, or just kind of anything in general. Anything? Anybody?
I had a question. On LinkedIn, every once in a while, I get a recruiter that reaches out to me, and I guess I was just trying to get a sense. A lot of times, it feels like spam. Are any of they worth paying attention to, or are they mostly spam? I hadn't ever really paid attention to them, but now that I am looking again, I just want to get what you thought about them, if you ever do that.
I reach out to people on LinkedIn all the time, right? Absolutely. And I have recruiters reach out to me all the time, right? That's what recruiters do. Recruiters are salespeople for the most part, right? Like, I shouldn't say that. That's wrong. There is a sales mentality or approach to recruiting. That's not all of it. Unfortunately, there are some recruiters that do just view it as sales, and that's unfortunate. But there are undoubtedly recruiters who spam, right? That aren't really taking a look at your profile. They did just catch a buzzword, right, or two, and they're sending you a random note, right? There are also, more pointed messages on like, hey, I look at your profile, or I look through your experience, and I would look for the ones I would be more likely to engage. Messages that are personal, right? That have like that showed a little bit of time, right? That time and interest, right? Like if for me where I am in my career right now, right? If somebody just shot me a spammy message that I could tell was a boilerplate message, it's like, come on, like that's the organization that you have. Like, is that the organization that I kind of work for? I don't want to work for that type of company where that's okay, right? But what I would do, the short answer is look at each message. Some of them are going to be good. Some of them are going to be worthwhile responding to. Others are not, right? It's always in my mind, as somebody that is looking to make, you're all going to be looking for jobs. You should look at jobs, right? Like if somebody's reaching out about a job proactively, take a look at it, right? But before you respond to, random Joe Smith that sent you the message, where's Joe Smith writing from? Like, what company does he work for? Is he an external headhunter that is saying he's got 10 different jobs that he's working on for 10 different companies? I'd love to know a little bit more about what you're actually working on, Joe Smith, before I spend the time here. But maybe Joe works at Microsoft and they've got something cool coming down the pipeline. They're actually interested in your background, then you should take a look at it, right? If you want to work for Microsoft. Personally, I don't. But the short answer is recruiters reach out. There are a lot of valid asks and valid recruiters on LinkedIn. There's definitely spam too.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. Where does the recruiter kind of fit in the whole hiring process? Are they kind of like, should we think of them as almost a gatekeeper to the hiring manager, or do they have even more input than that they're like handing maybe 2 resumes over to the hiring manager, or where does that typically fit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that depends upon the organization, right? Both their size as well as their structure, and as well the seniority of the recruiting or the talent team, right? Like there are certain recruiters that they are more sourcers, if you will, right? So they're really looking to just kind of, they've got their candidates need to check all these boxes. They check these boxes. I'm handing them off to somebody else to say yay or nay, right? They're those types of recruiters, which would be kind of that just frontline gatekeeper. Then there are recruiters like myself where I do all initial phone screens, right? Or my team does, right? Where I am talking, or my team is talking to the candidate to vet and understand motivation, core skills, right? And we have worked with our hiring managers to vet that initial criteria, right? To make sure that our hiring managers and interview teams don't have to do 100 interviews, right? We got the right amount. So it does depend. But and some companies don't even have recruiters, right? They might be small enough to where the hiring manager is actually running the hiring process. So it does depend. But if a company does have recruiters, you usually have to work with them. You usually have to work with them because they're the ones that are kind of going to shepherd people through the process. That wasn't necessarily an ambiguous answer, but I definitely it depends. Did you want a little bit more information? Do you want me to talk through a little bit more of that, or did you feel?
No, I just had a very little understanding of how to deal with a recruiter. Kind of what are they doing, and kind of what role do they fill a lot of times, because it does seem like it's maybe changes per organization.
It does. And then there's the external recruiter, right? There is the agency recruiter that they aren't hiring, right? They're the Robert Halves, the Michael Pages, right? Or whatever the heck it is that they are working for clients, usually multiple clients, and those clients are the companies that are actually hiring, right? So usually for entry or junior level roles, you see less use of agency recruiters. Those are usually for more mid-level experienced hires.
So follow on to that. Do you talk to a recruiter about money?
So yes, but no. So there are laws in place at this point, not across the United States, but in certain states, like Illinois for one, where recruiters cannot ask you about compensation history, right? They can ask you what your expectations are, and they should, right? And you should know what your expectations are, and you should have formulated that number. You should be able to back up why that number makes sense, right? But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about money. You just need to frame it up as best as you possibly can. Do not share your salary history, even if you're not in Illinois or California or New York or Massachusetts, and the other handful of states that kind of prohibit that question. Because ultimately, that's one of the things that and why these laws now exist and why we will ultimately get there across is it screws with parity, right? When you start paying people based upon their history versus what their worth is in the market, then you kind of that's how parity gaps get created, right? So yes, I think it's fair to talk, but and we'll talk about this towards the end of the cohort as well, right? As we were talking about interview prep, that question always comes up around offer negotiation. What is, there are a number of things that that can help you prepare for those conversations. But in the initial call, I think it's fair to answer, to say, obviously I realize I'm not a seasoned engineer at this point. I'm still researching value within the specific market because it depends, right? Somebody in Boston is going to get paid different than somebody in Chicago, and then in Seattle, then in Boise, then in San Francisco. All those markets have different values, right? And different pay bands. So, you could say as much, still not quite sure where I'm going to land, or it depends upon this, or I have a range depending upon the role, depending upon the company, depending upon the other benefits, right? If there's a significant 401k match with no vesting period, honestly, that's valuable to me. Maybe not to somebody that's 21 or 22, but to me, right? Like, that's great. I love it, right? Bring that on. And I'm willing to sacrifice a few $1,000s on my salary if I can get a guaranteed match, right, on my 401k. So there's a lot of things that go into those compensation discussions. So when the recruiter asks, what are you looking to make? Say, that's a great question, and it depends upon a lot of different factors. I've got a pretty pretty good range and I have flexibility, knowing that, I'm really looking to make sure I find the right match. Which is true. You are, you want to ideally find an opportunity that's going to allow you to grow, and then yes, make money. But there's flexibility, right? Like, would you rather go somewhere and make 80 grand, but just be told what to do for the next 5 years? Or would you be okay with going somewhere and making, $60,000 or even 50 or 55 or whatever, or even lower, if you're going to get a great mentor, right? And you're going to get an opportunity to work on a great, exciting product. Like maybe that's more enticing to you than, working on crap tech stack, right? For a product that doesn't interest you at all, and a hiring manager that honestly seems kind of like a jerk, right? Like those things all matter. So again, very long-winded response to that question. Okay. Anybody? Oh, there's